to let loose with a whirlwind or a whirlpool in the middle of your mind that pulls everything into its center. How would you like the feeling of something like that? Well, I'm not too sure that I'd like something like that. God is going to be asking you in what we're doing here as to whether or not you want to make a vortex of yourself, V-O-R-T-E-X, which is a whirling wind that sucks things into its center, and he's encouraging you to make a vortex. I'm Dr. Bob Wellman of the Christian Laity Foundation, created by God to help you to recover the magnificent, the great child of God that you are, an eternal being to live in the kingdom of heaven for all eternity in joy and peace and love. Would you like that? Yeah, so would I. That's what this is about. I am reading from the Footladder of Notes Divine, which is a series of messages that is a curriculum for healing that extends over 13 years that God has been talking to me about the process of healing and guiding me every single day, finding me where I'm at and offering me help, that same help which is available to you, by the way. This is message number 531 of the Footladder of Notes Divine, which you will find on our website, which is ChristianLaityFoundation.org. Laity is spelled L-A-I-T-Y, ChristianLaityFoundation.org. And it's the 531st message that came to me now some 10 or 11 years ago. It occurred in 2001. And he starts off that he says to you, make of you a vortex born. I want you to give birth to a vortex. And that vortex would be unencumbered by days of earthly delights. Apparently, if we're involved in earthly delights, we are not involved in something that brings us true peace and love and joy as God's beloved, only beloved children of God. Only that, the way God made us as spirit beings. Make of you a vortex born, unencumbered by days of earthly delights, that when you become this vortex, you're pulling back everything into the center of you, and you're not distracted by all these earthly beings, all these earthly doings, which God says are unhealed in their nature. He goes forward. Heal not thy contents, human. They're not healed. These are sick thoughts. They're unhealed thoughts that fly in the face of holy intent. Now read that sentence to you again. Healed not thy contents, human, that fly in the face of holy intent. There's the problem. You can't hear your holy intent, your precious, holy, God-given intent to you. You can't do it while you're holding on to earthly delights. They interfere with it. And so God is coming off to you and saying, make a vortex and you pull in, pull in, pull in, pull in, pull in. Well, the issue is, how do you do that? Number one, you have to want to do it. You have to realize, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. Indeed, I feel anxious, or I feel depressed, or uneasy, or worried, or a lack of a center. You feel all kinds of things when you're involved in earthly delights. And you try to overcome a feeling of loneliness. You're amongst people, but you're always feeling lonely. You're feeling unwanted. You're feeling unloved. You feel there's no answer. Maybe you've gone out with a dozen boyfriends or a dozen girlfriends, and you're always looking, and nothing solves this feeling of an aloneness, of a feeling of not worth. Or you can make it go outward, I'm of worth, but they're not. That's the other problem of earthly delight. You can go blame other people and condemn them and attack them for having these kinds of feelings, but you've got them. Have you got to the point where you couldn't solve this stuff? Have you gotten to this point? where you couldn't solve it yourself. Well, I'm Dr. Bob Wellman, and I was a clinical psychologist for years and years and years, looking for the solutions to this, believing that it existed within psychology, until finally I realized, no, the final answers aren't known, and I had to go looking again, because I couldn't get the fundamental issues resolved that were coming from looking at earthly kinds of things as being satisfying to me, when nothing resolved the feeling of this aloneness, of this unhappiness. This is what God is talking to you about, that you have to pull in. You can't settle it out there. It doesn't happen. You can be married. Your spouse doesn't settle it for you. You can have 112 children, 4 a year. Whatever it is that you're having, it doesn't settle it for you. Nothing settles it for you. Nothing outside of you settles for you. It's an inside issue, and you have to bring yourself back from looking out here for the happiness that you're looking for, because it's an inside issue. It's up here, ain't out there. It's in here. This is where it is. And God's addressing this with you with this 531st verse of the Footladder of Notes Divine. Let's go further. He states, and I repeat, heal not thy contents human. They're not healed. They're unhealed issues that fly in the face of holy intent. You have a holy intention. You have a holy, you're in this world, but you've got a holy intention, because earthly delights don't do it. Jesus was very clear in Scripture, you're in this world, but you're not of it. Well, if you're not of this world is not the world that brings you happiness. It's a different world than the world that God made, of eternal peace and love and joy to His beloved spirit children that now have everything that is His peace and love and joy. And you don't have it in this world, and you have been choosing to play with a world that is made up and which is in opposition to the world and to the being that God made you as. That you're entertaining, you're experimenting with being a God yourself, because God's not the center of your being. The vortex makes God the recovery of the center of your being, where you would feel the oneness with God and thereby have God's peace and love and joy as your consciousness. You haven't got it. And you need a vortex. You need to produce this to come back inside. This is what God is talking about here. This world is not your world. You remember God says to you, doesn't your Lord tell you that you're God's? Vortex, vortex. In the center of that vortex, you are a God, made in the likeness and image of our one Creator God, who created you in His likeness and His image to be godly beings, enjoying everything that He enjoys. Vortex, 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 to be able to recover it. It's sitting there inside you. But this interest in earthly delights and your desperation to make this world the world of your godliness is killing it. You can't feel it. It's an interference with the feeling of how God made you in the first place. And you say, well, I don't remember. Why did I ever do that? Never mind looking back, because that's not where the answer lies. You look right now. Is God the center of your life? Is every moment devoted to God, praising God? Lordy, 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 Lord. Lordy, Lordy, Lord. Lordy, 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 God. I love you more and more. Are you singing that all day long? Are you going at God out of gratefulness, of feeling that peace and love and joy? I suspect the answer is no. And I can get distracted by that also, by the way. There's no sweetheart talking to you here. I can get distracted. The issue is, though, that God has been teaching me how to get back to being able to sing it. And tell me, when issues hit, issues with your spouse, issues with how you feel yourself, depression, anxiety attacks, psychosomatic illness, headaches, whatever, are you using God? Does it make you run to God? when things aren't right? Do you see God as the center, that there are no headaches or any of that stuff in God? Doesn't make you with that stuff. It's what your mind is entertaining which does that to you. Is God your center? Vortex, vortex, vortex. God, I feel down and I offer myself to you because you know how to get me out of this downness. Or if you don't even sure of that, God, can you get me out of this downness? That's a prayer, also a request. The other one is an affirmation. I know that you can get me out of this downness, and I hand myself to you. Go do it. There's all ways of praying it. Is this the center of your being? And if it's not, now you know what God's talking to you about here. You're in an unhealed state which sickens you and sickens your existence. Shall we move on? Let's go. He goes further. Lost art thee. We're lost. Well, I'm just as lost as you when I'm in this human mind. We're lost. Lost art thee in thoughts amiss, mistaken thoughts. They're amiss. They're going all over the place. Tempted by dross junk. Tempted by dross of a meaningless state. Hello, dear brother and sister, heavenly, beloved oneness with me. In this world, we are in a meaningless state. Meaningless. No wonder we panic. We feel meaningless. We've lost our sense of a wholeness, of a purpose, of a why, of a who are we. We've lost it. Lost art thee in thoughts amiss, tempted by the dross, the junk of the meaningless state. That's the truth of what it is. That's the truth of what it is. Do you want to face that? Do you want to look at that? Do you hope that there's an answer for it? Thank God there is. And in the next segment of this, we're going to talk about how God instructs you to recover your sense of worth, of meaning, of joy, of peace, of love, of the divinity that you are, the oneness with God that you are, to sing and enjoy and dance with our magnificent Creator who made us as spirit beings in the kingdom of heaven to create whatever we want. You want to create some other thing, you want to be a Cocker Spaniel and go woof, whatever you want to do. In the kingdom of heaven you can experiment with anything and everything, and God doesn't mind because He knows that you will eventually be able to find the purity of love in which He has created you, and He helps you to recover it if you get into trouble with your thoughts, which is what this world is. But you have to be able to get your nerve up, to be able to go to God, to let Him do it. That's the next segment that we're going to move into. See you in segment 2.